Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So if you have watched my previous Lisa Eldridge review video of the Soft Velvet Matte collection, you know that I have fallen in love with this formula, and even though I don't wear bright lipsticks, I did end up buying the pinks and the reds, and they are here. So I have 6 of them, and recently I visited LA and took a few of them on my trip and applied them, and they looked amazing, felt amazing, and they are as good as I thought they would be. So today I will be swatching them, applying them on my lips, comparing them with some of the lipsticks that I have, particularly PatMcgrath and some of the MAC lipsticks. So if you're interested, keep on watching. So first I want to talk about the pink shades. So I ordered this blue pouch and it came with these 3 lipsticks. Now each lipstick was basically $33 a piece along with the pouch. And these are not the velvet matte lipsticks. One of them is like a glossy lipstick and it's called Love of My Life. And the other 2 are matte lipsticks, but they're not particularly the velvet kinds. So let's look at the first one. So this is Love of My Life, and it looks basically a glossy lipstick. You can see. Next, I have Rainbow Spill. Now this is a matte lipstick, but this is not like one of those velvet textured. It does have some texture, but it's not particularly the velvet texture that you have in the Soft Velvet Matte collection. Let me show you. So if you see, the lipstick looks a little different on the camera compared to this one, and that's because the texture on these 2 is different. So this one is this pink shade, and it's basically, oh my god, I broke it. It's basically a very neonish pink shade, and I broke it while I was swatching it. So you've got to be careful with these. Next, I have Skyscraper Rose. This is this very deep pink shade, and just so I don't break it. So this one is basically a deep pink, and Rainbow Spill is basically like a girly pink but neon. I don't have any comparable shade for the Rainbow Spill or this pink one, but I do have a few comparable for Skyscraper Rose. So let's swatch those. So the first comparable shade I have is from PatMcgrath, and it's called Full Panic. So I'll swatch this right here. And this one's, it's got a bit of neonness to it, and it's slightly darker than Skyscraper Rose. So yeah, that's the comparable shade. The other comparable shade I have is from MAC, and it's called All Fired Up. And I think this would be a much closer comparable shade. Let's see. So if I smudge this a little bit. Yeah, I think Skyscraper Rose still is lighter than these 2. So I feel like this makes it a little bit more wearable. Unless you're looking for a darker shade, then maybe not. But otherwise, yeah, it's this nice wearable dark pink shade. And just to show that this is actually not very purpley, so I have this Antidote shade from PatMcgrath, and just to show you the difference. So yeah, that's actually the purple shade, and these are like true pinks. And I have one more shade I thought I'll compare it with. So this is the Kat Von D liquid lipstick, and it's called Bauhaus something. So let me swatch it somewhere here. So this is, it's a beautiful shade. It's one of my favorite pink lipsticks, and it's this purpley pink lipstick. But again, Skyscraper Rose is more on the pink side than purple side. So yeah. Now let's apply these on the lips. So the first shade I'll apply is Love of My Life, and this is this glossy lipstick. So something that I notice about this lipstick is that even though it's like a dark shade, no matter how much I apply, it still remains light. So even if you keep reapplying it, it won't become like too dark, and it's very moisturizing. But again, this is, if you're into glossy lipsticks, I think this is a good lipstick, but I prefer matte lipsticks, especially when they're darker shades. So yeah, that's my least favorite of the lot. This is Love of My Life. The next shade I have is Rainbow Spill. Now I have broken it while swatching, so I'll be careful. I will apply this in like small bits. So just applying a little bit and just smudging it. It's this lovely neon pink shade. I really like it, and it's very unique. So this is Rainbow Spill, just applied with a finger. And it's a very cute shade. Now I'll just apply the whole thing. So this is Rainbow Spill in all its glory. Now the camera and this light actually doesn't do justice to this shade. It's actually a very pretty light pink neon shade, which I think will look perfect in the summer with let's say a floral dress or a yellow orange dress or something like that, or even a black or a white cream dress. So it's actually very nice, and I think amongst all the neon pink shades that are out there, I think this one's the most wearable. So that's Rainbow Spill for you. But yeah, don't judge this shade based on this setting. Let me switch on the yellow light and see how that looks. And I feel like this light actually does a bit of more justice to the shade than the white ring light. So yeah, that's Rainbow Spill. Next, I will apply Skyscraper Rose. So this is the dark pink shade. So this shade, I don't think I will apply like just a hue. I will always apply this like a full-blown lipstick, because I think the beauty of this lipstick is the darkness of this lipstick and not the tinge. So that's just me. So Skyscraper Rose is basically this fuchsia pink shade, and in Hindi we have a color, we call it the Rani color. So I think this is a very nice matte Rani color in Hindi, and I really like this shade. It's dark, but I feel like it's very wearable. And this is how it looks in a pure yellow light setting. So that's Skyscraper Rose. Now I look super weird because I'm going to compare this shade with the Full Panic shade from PatMcgrath. And I'm hoping the camera catches it. I'm going to switch the lights a bit here and there so you can see. But this shade is actually much darker than Skyscraper Rose. So I think the camera is catching the difference. So Skyscraper Rose is more of a true pink purpley shade, and Full Panic is more like a reddish pink shade. I mean, more pink, less red, but still it's darker and it's more on the red side than the purpley side. So that's the difference. Now I'll switch on the yellow light as well and see if that shows up. So in this pure yellow light, you can definitely not tell the difference. They look exactly the same. So I'll stick to this light, and in this light, I also wanted to compare the All Fired Up shade. So this is with All Fired Up. Now this one is definitely a much more closer shade to Skyscraper Rose than Full Panic from PatMcgrath. I feel like this is definitely comparable, but still I think there is a lot of difference between them as well. If you look closely, this one's again more pink, and this one's, I think, a milder version of Full Panic. So it would be Skyscraper Rose, All Fired Up, and Full Panic in increasing order. So again, there is some difference, but not a lot. I feel like this is more true pink compared to All Fired Up. This one's got a bit of red though. So that's All Fired Up with Skyscraper Rose. So next I want to talk about the red lipsticks. So I have this Velvet Morning shade, which is this orange shade, Velvet Ribbon, which is this red shade, and Velvet Jazz, which is this deep red shade. So let's swatch these. So I have a bit of tinge left from the pink shades that I had swatched, so we'll just ignore that. Now this is the Velvet Morning shade, and this is this very wearable, nice orange shade. And I wore this in LA and it looked super nice and lasted all day. I did obviously touch it up once I ate something, but it didn't, you know, pile on and look horrible. It was still comfortable. And yeah, so it didn't dry out my lips too much, even though it did a little bit, but it was not that bad. So I actually really enjoyed this lipstick in my trip to LA. Next, I have Velvet Ribbon. So this is this super red shade, and this is how it looks. Now this is a very deep red shade, but I feel like it's got a bit of blue to it. And I forgot to mention that these lipsticks actually have the same velvet texture like the soft velvet ones. So the pink ones were not this way, but the red ones are. So these have that velvet finish. Next I have Velvet Jazz, and this is this deep red shade, and I will swatch it. So this is Velvet Jazz. It's this beautiful maroon shade. Now before I start comparing the other shades, I just want to compare the Velvet Decade shade with the Jazz shade just to show you. This one's super brown and Velvet Jazz is this maroon shade. Now a few comparable shades that I have with Velvet Morning. This is this Pat McGrath Obsessed shade, and this is how it compares. So it's certainly much more deeper and slightly more red compared to Velvet Morning. Another comparable shade is the MAC Chaud shade, C-H-A-U-D. I don't know how to pronounce it. So that's how it compares. And I have this orange MAC liquid lipstick. It's called Quite the Standout. So I'll just compare that as well. And I'll maybe put it right here. So obviously because it's a liquid lipstick, it's much more deeper and much more rich in pigment. So, but yeah, it's definitely a comparable shade though. Next, I want to compare the red. So what I'll do is I'll first apply Velvet Ribbon right here. And I want to compare it with the Pat McGrath Elson shade. So this is how it compares. They look pretty much the same. I feel like the Elson is much more deeper though. Another red that I have is the MAC Ruby Boo shade. And it's become very, very dry. But I feel like it's pretty comparable. I feel like this one's a much more truer red compared to Velvet Ribbon. This one's got a bit of blue to it. Another red lipstick that I have is from Bite Beauty, and this is this red velvet shade. Applied here. I feel like this is more comparable to Velvet Jazz and not Velvet Ribbon though. Another Pat McGrath lipstick that I had actually lost and I found it today, and it's this Fever Dream shade. So I will apply it right here. This one's got a bit of orange to it and this one's more blue. Next, I will put Velvet Jazz one more time right here. And I want to compare it with MAC Diva shade. I don't have a comparable from Pat McGrath for this lipstick. So this is Diva, and I feel like this is pretty similar to Velvet Jazz, although I feel like Diva has got a little bit of more blue to it. Just one more time, I will swatch the red velvet shade from Bite Beauty and somewhere here. So yeah, that's the comparables for Velvet Jazz. So first I will apply the orange lipstick, which is this Velvet Morning shade. I think the best way to describe this shade is it's this vintage orange shade. It's super matte, but it's not drying. It's pigmented and it doesn't slip. And it's, I think, very wearable. The application, on the other hand, is horrible, but I feel like this is a very, very beautiful orange shade. Now I want to compare this shade with the MAC Chaud shade. So that's MAC Chaud. Now the difference, the shade are very, very close, but there is a difference in the texture. The Velvet Morning shade basically is very dry. It doesn't have any sort of sheen in it, nothing like that, super matte. But Chaud has a little bit of shine to it, like a very little bit of balminess to it, which makes it comfortable. And it's not a bad thing, it's just that's how they they differ. So that's why this one has this more matte, deeply pigmented vintage feel, whereas this one's a bit of shiny comparatively. So that's Mac Chaud compared with Velvet Morning. Another shade I want to compare this with is the PatMcgrath Obsessed shade. Now again, this is a very beautiful orange shade as well, but it's got a bit of red in it. And let's see how it applies. So as you can probably tell, the Obsessed shade is darker. It's more reddish orange, whereas Velvet Morning is pure orange. So that's kind of the difference. I don't think it's a subtle difference. I think it's quite an obvious difference. Maybe it doesn't show up as well in the camera, but in person, I can definitely tell that there is a drastic difference between these two orange. And honestly, I prefer the Velvet Morning orange. So that's the comparison. Next, I have Velvet Ribbon. So this is the red shade. It's definitely a very blue red, at least on my skin tone. But I mean, I don't wear blue reds, but there's something about this lipstick that I don't mind. It actually looks good. So that's Velvet Ribbon. So now I'll compare Velvet Ribbon with some of the other reds. Before I do that, I do want to mention, compared to Velvet Morning, I think this is more moisturizing and a little bit more shiny and hydrating. I mean, at least it feels like that. Velvet Morning was a bit dry, which is why it didn't have that slip. Not to say that one is better than the other, it's just the way it is. They both look really good though. So this was the Vintage Red. Now I'll just apply this shade with PatMcgrath Elson. So my Elson lipstick is actually broken, so I'll be a little careful while applying. And maybe you can tell this Velvet Ribbon is again more matte. Elson on the other hand is a bit shiny. Once you dab it, it will become more matte, but when you apply it at first, this one's more slippery and shiny, and Velvet Ribbon is more matte. Also, Elson appears to be more deeper maroonish red compared to Velvet Ribbon, even though it's actually red, but compared to Velvet Ribbon, it's much more deeper. So that's Elson compared with Velvet Ribbon. Next, I'm going to compare Velvet Ribbon with Ruby Woo. Now, I'm really excited about this comparison because so far Ruby Woo has been the best red matte lipstick that looks nice on my skin tone. So let's see how this looks. So Ruby Woo definitely is not my first choice for a red lipstick though, even though the shade looks good. It's because it's very uncomfortable and it just dries out my lips like crazy. So I don't really wear this lipstick. But the shade, I feel like it's the perfect shade for my skin tone. So first of all, this side feels extremely uncomfortable to me. When I do this just feels so dry and this feels super comfortable. In terms of shade, this is definitely more blue. It's not like my first choice of red, but I feel like it still looks good, so I don't mind it. It's definitely, you know, different from Ruby Woo. There is more redness, pure redness to Ruby Woo compared to Velvet Ribbon. This one's slightly more pinkish blue, but I still prefer Velvet Ribbon only because it's super comfortable compared to Ruby Woo. So yeah, Ruby Woo is just something that I never wear, only because it's just super uncomfortable for me. So let me switch on the yellow light and see how it looks. So in this pure yellow light, they pretty much look the same. Again, this one feels a little more deeper, but it's a very subtle difference, I'll say. So yeah, that's the comparison of Velvet Ribbon with Ruby Woo. Next, I have Velvet Jazz. So this is this super nice maroon shade. I really like this color. So let's see how it looks. So that's Velvet Jazz. So for comparisons, actually I forgot to mention that I have a Smashbox shade. Let's see how that looks. So this is Velvet Jazz and this is the Smashbox B Legendary lipstick. and it is this maroon shade. Let's see how it compares. I think this is quite close. I really like this lipstick as well, but this one's got a bit of more brownness to it, whereas this one's more maroon, but they're very, very close. So I'll apply this shade on this side and see how it compares. So in terms of shade, I feel like these are pretty much the same shade. This is a little bit more brown, but it's a very, very subtle difference. They are very, very similar. But in terms of feeling, this side just feels more comfortable. The Smashbox side, first of all, I feel it enhances a little bit of texture on my lips, and it feels a little, it pulls my lips a little bit, and it's a bit dry comparatively. So yeah, the feeling is better with the Lisa Eldridge lipstick. In terms of the shade, I feel like they're very similar. I think I'll try Diva. So this side is Diva. Now this is a very wine shade. It's more purpley, plummy brown, whereas this one's more reddish, maroonish shade, Velvet Jazz. So yeah, that's how these compare. The application is horrible, and at this point my lips are super dry. But yeah, that's, I think, the last comparison I have. All right, so these were the swatches, applications and comparisons of the Lisa Eldridge bright colored lipsticks. So they're all very nice, but I think my most favorite is Velvet Jazz, the one I have on. My second favorite would be Velvet Morning. I think it's such a beautiful orange shade, which is super wearable and comfortable. And my third favorite would be Rainbow Spill. I feel like it's such a unique neon pink shade. It's very wearable and still it's neon. That's an amazing quality. I've never seen such a shade before, and I'm super excited to try it on during the summers. And I think fourth position would be a tie between Skyscraper Rose and Velvet Ribbon. I think they're both nice, but I can't make up my mind which one is better than the other. And the last one would be Love of My Life, only because it's not a matte shade. I'm someone who likes matte shades more than glossy lipstick, so that's the reason why that would be at the last ranking. So yeah, that's how I rank all these colorful shades. Now, no matter what the ranking of these shades, I feel like the common theme is that the formula is just amazing. They are very, very soft, creamy, very comfortable, and I feel like the shade selection just is so amazing that I feel like any skin tone can wear these shades. It's such a wearable color selection, so I really, really like that. And they have this unique capability or quality to kind of make the lips look nicer and blurred and beautiful, and it doesn't enhance texture. So I like everything about these lipsticks except for one thing, which is the packaging. Not because it's not good looking. I definitely feel that it's a very good looking bullet, very nice, magnetic and all of that. But I feel like there should be some hints in this packaging that what shade this is. Even here, like, it's all golden, so when you have so many lipsticks, it's really, really hard to figure out which one's what. So I think I am going to color code these somehow with some tape or marker or something to tell me that which ones are, like, you know, the reds or the pinks. So yeah, that's something I feel like that could have been done, and I hope she does it in her future lipsticks. But other than that, I have absolutely no complaints about this formula, about these lipsticks. I'm a big fan. And in terms of price point as well, I feel like they're, again, $33. PatMcgrath is $40. So this is definitely not as expensive as PatMcgrath. In fact, the YSL Rouge Couture lipsticks, they are also, I think, $39 or $40, and they're also really good. But these are equally good, if not better, and still much cheaper. So I really, really like these lipsticks, and I do recommend that you must buy at least some of these shades to know what I'm talking about. So yeah, you have to experience it to know how amazing these lipsticks are. I hope you liked this video, and I hope this was helpful. If you did like this video, do give it a thumbs up, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. And until the next time we meet, bye.